Saturday the 13th. Half Moon Bay today. We're still talking change. I'm coming off the back of New Year's. We're 13 days in now. My resolutions are going alright. As you can see, I'm still flogging. For those of you that have also decided to enact some change, I'm hoping that's going well for you. It's pretty windy today, which is okay. We can handle the wind. So when I was thinking of enacting New Year's resolutions, making New Year's resolutions, I started paying a bit more attention to behaviour change. So in order to prove a point to myself, I made some really explicit changes. I sold my old beautiful car that I'd been dreaming about doing up one day, but was never going to. I have started swimming in the mornings, preferably before the sun gets up, on the mornings that I don't kayak. So traditionally I'm down there somewhere, paddling and doing my thing. And so today, in the interest of change, I'm up here. For those of you who can see, that little dot there is the Cerberus. So the Cerberus, in Greek mythology, is a multi-headed dog that guards the underworld to prevent the dead from escaping. Once again, did myself a little bit of research. This time it's a bit different because we're talking about behaviour change, we're talking about the psychology of behaviour change, we're talking about the observable phenomena of behaviour change. Now this is kind of my bread and butter, this is what I do for a living. So this didn't take as much research. Most of this I already know. Sort of scanned around to find what the Australian Psychological Association agreed upon as some key elements to behaviour change. And they are, number one, self-efficacy. That means that people think they have control over their ability to change their environment or to change their mind or to change their behaviour. Number two is autonomy. People over the age of 2 need to feel autonomous over any situation for them to believe they can change it. Readiness for change. When I'm doing work with clients who have got substance use issues, it's all about readiness for change, but that really just goes across the board. All behaviour change is about readiness for change. So you need the infrastructure in place, whether that's the psychological infrastructure or the physical, environmental infrastructure. If the timing ain't right and you're not ready and you're not prepared, the odds are you're not going to enact that change. So goal setting orientates you. So you've got to know where it is that you're going and what it is that you want. 5, relapse of any behaviour change, whether it's substance use or whether it's diet or whether it's fitness or whatever it is that you're trying to enact. Relapse is really, really common, almost predictable. In the drug and alcohol sector, we talk about the difference between lapse and relapse. That means that you can trip over, but it's whether you get up again or not. 6, psychoeducation. So what that means is you have to educate yourself about your own psychology, and not just your psychology, but the psychology of the human race in general, so you stop taking all of this personally. We're all in this together, okay? So the last key fact I found was that if you're going to engage a healthcare professional to assist you with behaviour change, so whether that be a counsellor or a psychotherapist or a psychologist or a coach or a yogi, it's the strength of the therapeutic relationship with that person that is going to be the greatest determinant as to your ability to enact the change that you want. So you really need to get along with your therapist. So if we're trying to break down behaviour into 2 simple categories, the easiest way to understand that is approach behaviour or avoidance behaviour. Now, approach behaviour is best understood as behaviour that's directed towards a desired outcome. So goal seeking, reward seeking, something along those lines. Avoidance behaviour, behaviour that's enacted to avoid a perceived physical or psychological threat. So the brain knows no distinction between a physical threat, being chased by a lion for example, and between a psychological threat. The same parts of the brain light up. We experience social ostracisation as pain. So that's really important because that motivates a lot of our behaviour. A lot of the avoidance we engage in is based around our fear of social ostracisation. When we engage in approach or avoidance behaviours, we're engaging certain parts of our neurology. Now when we approach something, when we're orientated around goal attainment, whether it be psychologically or physically, we're engaging the left prefrontal cortex. That's where the activity under a brain scan can be seen for people that are engaging in approaching behaviour. And likewise, when we're engaging in avoidance behaviour, the right prefrontal cortex becomes stimulated and more engaged. And so what neurologists find is people that engage in avoidance behaviour more than they engage in approach behaviour have more generalised activity in their right prefrontal cortex. This is what we're talking about when we talk about neuroplasticity. You've got to start thinking about the brain more like a muscle. If I want to build my calves up, there's no point just doing curls all day. You need to practice the parts of your body that you want to change. So if you want to engage in more approaching behaviours, you need to literally start doing new and rewarding things as much as possible. Because every time you avoid something, you're literally practicing avoidance and increasing the probability of you avoiding more things in the future. So I'm going to do a little exercise to illustrate this. When I'm saying that all behaviour can be framed as approach or avoidance, that largely is the psychological relationship to the behaviour. So observably, you can be doing the same thing. I could be losing weight or I can be exercising, but my psychological relationship to that is going to influence whether that's perceived more as an avoidance behaviour or more as an approach behaviour. For example, if my desire to be fit and healthy is really based on my fear of being fat or my self-loathing of my own body, trying to avoid getting fat rather than moving towards being fit. The same as if my desire for an intimate, meaningful relationship is really being motivated by my fear of loneliness. I've got a little exercise that I love, which I sometimes do with clients. But anyway, I'm going to do it right now to try and illustrate my point. So here you are. Here's what you want. Here's what you don't want. With my clients, I ask them to articulate exactly what it is that you don't want to do anymore. What is it that you're sick of doing? What are these repetitive, destructive cycles that you find yourself stuck in? And this, in my understanding of existence, is largely motivated by anxiety. When we think about those things, we feel anxious and terrible and uncomfortable. This is what we want. These are all the kind of feel-good things that we're after. These are our goals, our dreams, our aspirations, whether they're physical, psychological, relational, I don't know. That's up to us to determine, and that's different for everyone. If I'm motivated to achieve my goals largely by my desire to avoid the things that give me anxiety, my energy and attention is still focused on avoidance behaviour rather than approaching behaviour. So what I do with my clients, I ask them to focus on the things that they want to avoid, the things they want to eliminate from their lives, and then I ask them to move towards their goals and try and grab their goals. And so this is the whole point of approach or avoidance behaviour. The behaviour can actually look the same. I can be moving towards what I want, but if the motivation is to avoid what I don't want, I'm practicing the act of avoidance, whichever way you think about it. This is what goal attainment looks like when you're motivated through trying to reduce your fear and anxieties, through avoidance behaviour. You're kind of walking backwards in the dark, unsure of what it is that you're going for. Likewise, if I'm more engaged in approach behaviours, I turn around, I face what I want, I go for it. It's a really simple exercise, it's just not easy. I can't state that enough. So the reality is the more you engage in approach behaviours, the higher probability that you will continue to move towards what it is that you want. The more you engage in avoidance behaviour, the higher the probability that you're going to continue to avoid your fears and uncomfortable feelings, and that's going to be your motivation. And unfortunately that branches out into everything. So the trick is really just to focus on what you want and go for it. And what I want right now is to have a paddle. As the Buddhists say, you know, where attention goes, energy flows. So if you practice avoidance, you're going to get really good at it. If you practice approaching new and interesting behaviours with a goal-orientated mentality that's not motivated by fear or anxiety, then you've got a greater likelihood of behaving like that in the future. Stay awesome. I'm going to get